and I oversee the day-to-day logistics of our research trials at our Versailles facility. So a digestibility trial allows us to, at its simplest form, feed a diet and then measure what goes in and measure what comes out, and the difference is what is absorbed by the horse. So it tells us what the horse is able to actually utilize from the diet that it's being fed. So for a digestibility trial, typically horses are adapted to the diet for 3 to 4 weeks so that their digestive system can get used to the diet that they're eating. And then we put them in something we call nappies, which is basically like a giant diaper, and it collects their feces and or urine that we can then measure and collect. They're usually in those for 5 to 7 days, depending on the trial. The interns get a good opportunity to empty the nappies at least 3 times a day, sometimes more often than that. We'll hand walk the horses, and then once we get a 24-hour collection of the feces, we'll mix it all together by hand and then sample it and send it off, and that's what we measure and compare to our diet nutrients. We measure a long list of nutrients, primarily the different fibers, crude protein, fat, starch, all the vitamins and minerals. It's a very long list of nutrients that we measure. It is definitely our probably most labor-intensive type of study we do here. It's early hours, late nights. We have to keep a close eye on the horses, and we take extra care to groom them and take care of them and walk them around and make sure that they're happy. And particularly the processing of the samples is what takes the most time. So in addition to our digestibility trial, we're also doing a glycemic trial. We feed one meal of the forage, and then we test particularly the glucose levels after feeding, but we can also test the insulin levels. So that gives us an idea of the glycemic response of the different forages, and that could be really beneficial to know for either horses that are insulin resistant, where you want a lower glucose response, or horses that need that glucose for high performance to be able to provide energy. A high glucose response to a feed is really beneficial to high performance horses because it provides that glucose very quickly. It's an easily usable energy source for the horse. So this research can be directly applicable to the people at the Olympics because that's what we're going to be offering for them to feed their horses. It's very helpful to know the digestibility of the forages that you are feeding in order to know how much you need to feed. So if a higher digestibility forage is fed, you could potentially feed less of it. A lower digestibility forage, you might have to feed a higher volume of it. High performance horses, typically you want more energy and more nutrients available to them, and so you would potentially feed a higher digestibility forage. So the Anderson hay, we've worked with that company for a while now. They're based in, they have a few different locations, but the hay that we typically buy from them is from Washington. We do use that for a majority of our research trials at KAR now. It provides a very high quality feed forage that we know what the nutrients are. It's very consistent and reliable, and we have worked with them in order to provide a consistent high quality forage for the Olympic horses. We've been feeding with Anderson hay for quite a few of our research trials at KAR now. The horses absolutely love it, and that's really helpful for the studies that we do. Intake obviously is really important to digestibility trials, and these horses eat it up. They love every single bit of it. So we found best practices with handling the compressed bales of the Timothy hay is we open up a bale and kind of let it sit and expand by itself for a little bit. If horses have issues with dust, it's not necessarily dusty, but it does have smaller particles because it is compressed. So if that's an issue for your horse, you could wet it down. We've done that in the past as well, but we usually don't have issues with our horses in that regard.